Greetings, book lovers everywhere. I'm E-Train and welcome to E-Train Talks. Today, I'm going to be chatting everything books with award-winning playwright and middle grade author Alyssa Colman. Alyssa wrote the magically captivating, fast page turner, The Gilded Girl series, which is filled with themes of friendship, acceptance, and new beginnings. I absolutely love the Gilded series, and I know a lot of you listening really like the series too. Alyssa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, E-Train. I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm excited for this too. So, fun fact, Alyssa's birthday was yesterday, May 4th, so congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
So, now it's time to get into the questions. My first question for you is that I read on your website that you're not only an award-winning author, but you're also an award-winning playwright. How do you incorporate your work as a playwright into your novels?
Sure. So I began writing when I was working in New York City. I worked in the theater, and I worked for an off-Broadway theater. In various different capacities. I worked for a literary talent agency, and I was so immersed in the world of plays, I started writing them myself. And in the meantime, I didn't read many plays on the side. I read what I had to for work. What I loved was books. And I inhaled them like air, as my husband said. So I would read books all the time. And so I transitioned from writing plays to books. For me, the interesting thing about writing plays is that if you can't show it or say it, you can't do it on stage. You can't just describe the beautiful way that the light looked through the window. You have to show the light coming through the window. So I feel like I write very visually because I'm used to having to write things as they happen and how to describe it so that a director could understand it, so that actors could understand it. I love writing dialogue. If I could just write scenes that were just dialogue, I probably would. But those wouldn't be very much fun to read. So I feel like writing plays has very much informed my novel writing.
Yeah, and I can certainly see the way I can visualize all the events in the Gilded Girl series. I love the way you describe emotions, just settings. It's all amazing. And I can see how
Thank
that
you.
would kind of contribute to your work as a playwright.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel like no writing is ever lost. Every type of writing you try, every different medium, they all inform each other and they all make you a better writer overall.
Wow, those are great words. Everybody listen to Alyssa. She's pretty wise.
Thanks. I try.
So my next question is, it's mentioned in your novel that The Gilded Girl is based on the movie A Little Princess. Can you share with our listeners how this came to be and the similarities and differences between your novel and the movie?
Sure. So A Little Princess is actually a book by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I believe there's been 4 or 5 different movie adaptations at this point. So that's also part of how The Tarnished Garden came to be, that Frances Hodgson Burnett wrote A Little Princess, and she also wrote The Secret Garden. So the second book in the series is based on The Secret Garden, since the original author wrote both of those same books. But The Gilded Girl, I first got the inspiration. I loved The Little Princess when I was younger. I read the book, I watched the movies. I have a strong memory of doing a monologue, passage of it as a monologue in my theater class. And so I hadn't read it in years and years. And then I got the audiobook and I was listening to it. And the main character in A Little Princess is named Sarah Crew. And she does everything flawlessly. She's just perfect. She always knows how to react in situations. She can keep her temper, and all the other girls in the school love her, and she's kind. And part of the story is that she's kind no matter what her circumstances are. And as I was listening to it, I thought, oh, it would be awful to be one of her classmates because she'd always be measuring up to this perfect person. Like, you would always be not perfect.
Yeah.
And the voice of that became Izzy. So this girl who looks at Emma and thinks, oh, gross, I wouldn't want to be like her. So that was what sparked the idea of the story, was actually Izzy's voice coming to me. And then I was looking for a time to set it, and I found so many parallels to our world in the Gilded Age. the haves and the have-nots, the vast differences in wealth and inequalities. And I thought, ooh, what a fun time to set a book. So there's a lot of plot that's similar. It hits some of the main plot points. A couple of the characters are familiar from A Little Princess. The Frances friend character is very similar to Ermengarde in A Little Princess, except in that story, in A Little Princess, they're friends right away, whereas in my story, it takes some time for them to become friends. And the Beatrice character is based on Lavinia, another mean girl at the school, except my Beatrice, I feel, has a little more reason for why she's snobbish and mean, whereas Lavinia is just kind of mean.
Well, I definitely have to read A Little Princess and The Secret Garden. They sound like amazing books. I mean, judging by the fact that the Gilded Girl series is just a fantastic page turner.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, they were written, I will say as a caveat, they were written over 100 years ago. So there are some things in the book that are of its time. There are elements of colonialism and classism. So to any young readers who are thinking about reading those books, it's a great book to read along with an adult. So you can have some conversations about some of the antiquated ideas that are in those books.
Yeah, and I also think it's really interesting how you kind of incorporate characters from the books that you read and kind of put them into your own novel, because, like, for instance, some readers might be able to resonate, for instance, Izzy with the voice of you, or Emma with the main character in The Little Princess. So it's just, I think it's great how you resonate and kind of find similarities between the two, but not everything is perfectly similar, just like not everything is perfect, which you kind of touch base on in The Gilded Girl.
Exactly. I wanted to make sure that there was no character who was quite as perfect as in A Little Princess, because none of us are perfect, and I didn't want anyone trying to measure themselves against that standard.
That's a beautiful message, and that's one that we should all kind of try and resonate with, because nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes, and we have to learn that.
Exactly. You said it very well.
So have you always been a fan of magic, like Emma, Izzy, and the other students at Miss Posterity's Academy for Practical Magic?
Of course. Who isn't a fan of magic?
Yeah.
I would have loved to have magic when I was their age. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, that does sound like a lot of fun. I like to think of magic as just the way that we describe the unbelievable, because like I think magic is kind of how do I put this? Magic is kind of what, like, the unthinkable, the unimaginable, and it's kind of a way to describe just what might not be able to happen. When we really want to believe something can happen, it's kind of magic.
Exactly. I mean, how do I even follow up that answer? You said it so well.
Thank you.
No, I completely agree.
So now it's time for the next question. Are there any characters in the Gilded Girl series that are modeled after real people in your life?
Bits and pieces, yes. I'd say that Emma's shyness comes from me. I'm not in a party. I'm not going to be in the center of the room. I'll probably be against the wall wishing I had a good book with me. But Izzy is stubborn. She also gets that from me, unfortunately. Once I decide I'm going to do something, I usually dive in 110%, just like she does. Tom is based on a little bit of a friend of mine from high school, his kindness and his caring about the world. So whenever I was writing him, I drew from my friend. Frances is based on a little bit of a friend I had in college who always needed that extra boost of self-confidence. So I've kind of, well, no one is exactly like my friends. I've pulled bits and pieces of them because I love them so much. It makes it easier to write characters that I love.
Yeah, I love when authors like kind of pull pieces of their life into their books, because it can kind of feel more relatable when like the author kind of knows what they're writing about. They have somebody who they can use to kind of model the characters of their novels off of.
Exactly. Or, sometimes we've just spent enough time with those imaginary characters that they've started to feel real to us. Emma at first was a challenging character to write, whereas Izzy just came to me immediately. Though it's funny because I'm probably much more like Emma than I am Izzy. So in a way, it was easier to imagine Izzy than it was to write myself into the page.
Yeah, but from this interview, you seem pretty outspoken.
Oh, thank you. I do all right.
Yeah. I love your book chats as well. I love when you talk about the Tarnished Garden on that YouTube live stream. I think you have a way with words, like when you're writing and when you're talking.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm very introspective about my writing. I spend a lot of time thinking about it before I even put words down. I have journals full of thoughts that I use to create the worlds. So I've spent a lot of time formulating the words.
Well, it certainly come out beautiful, just like the Gilded Girl series.
Thank you. And you are very articulate yourself.
Thank you. Some words are kind of come to me in a way. Like I feel like when I'm talking, it's kind of I'm writing a story. So I like to think of it like that.
I love that. And I can tell you, I know you've mentioned that you want to be an author someday. And I can tell just from the way you talk that I think you're going to get there.
Thank you. Authors like you are my real inspirations. Also, not just because you're authors, but also because I find that authors, agents, editors, and people in the book industry in general, they're always kind of the most kind people I really talk to because and from their experiences and just from their personalities.
Yeah, I think that there are some truly wonderful people in this industry that really care. We're not in it for the money. Yeah. We're in it because we love stories and we love connecting with our readers. I think that it's wonderful what you're doing, connecting to authors and bringing them to your friends and your listeners, because when I was your age, I thought you pretty much had to be old and dead to be a writer. I don't think we read books by authors that were alive in school. And I think most of the books that my librarians gave me were very old. It took a long time before I realized, oh, wait, this could be an actual job. This could be something I could do. And I think that it's wonderful that you have already discovered that.
So what authors did kind of inspire you and make you realize, hey, I can be an author. I don't need to be old and dead to do this.
The ones that were alive certainly helped. I think the first author that I really was like, wow, this is a real person. Brian Jakes, who wrote the Redwall series, came touring through my town when I was a little old for the books at that point, I think, and he'd written quite a lot of them. But I went to it and fell back in love with the series. And so that was wonderful when I got to meet him. I think I was probably in 8th grade, I want to say, when that happened. But even then, it didn't really occur to me until I really started reading as an adult. As I said, I wrote in other forms and then suddenly went, wait, I could write books.
Yeah. And I'm falling back in love with the Gilded Girl series as we speak, because I'm just hearing you talk about it and how you wrote it. It's really interesting. And I think it kind of helps me not only write, but also kind of think about your stories a little differently.
Oh, thank you. I think getting to know the author adds a different dimension to the book. And hopefully, I hope that people can love my books independently of me, but it makes me feel really nice that you say that. Thank you.
Thank you. So both Emma and Izzy face devastating hardships in The Gilded Girl. What prompted you to write a story where the protagonists face such heart-wrenching roadblocks and challenges?
Well, the loss of her father, that is one of the plot points that I did pull from A Little Princess. But that was actually one of the plot points that I really wanted, that made me want to write from A Little Princess to begin with, because I think it's really fascinating to go back to the ancient Greeks and their ideas of drama, that really the biggest falls make the most dramatic changes in a story. And I wanted to write about someone who lost everything and had to essentially restart her life And for me, that was part of why I decided to incorporate magic into the story, because it's such a clear line. Having money, how many thousands of dollars would the bar, where would I put the bar? No, if she has magic or she doesn't, it's clear cut. And she drops from the top all the way down to the bottom. I know it's a podcast, I'm talking with my hands. And
we can also make it a video if you'd like.
Okay. But she goes all the way from the top to the bottom, and she has to work her way back up again to cross that line back into having magic. So I thought that was really dramatic and interesting. I think, in so many stories, things work out easily. And I wanted to write about how things often go in real life, where you get one step further and then, you fall one step further behind. So yeah, it's a lot of terrible things have happened to these kids. It's true, but I think it makes them more interesting people to read about.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think the mistakes, the tragedies that Emma and Izzy make and face, I think that's kind of what makes them stronger as characters and just makes the readers love them even stronger. And to be honest, I also talk with my hands way too much. So
good. We can talk together with our hands.
Yeah. So my next question for you is, what are some lessons and themes you hope your readers will take away from the Gilded Girl series?
So definitely, as we were talking about before, no one is perfect. Don't measure yourself to this impossible standard. That's one of the things that Emma really has to learn during The Gilded Girl. She measures herself against the stories she's always heard about her mother, and she uses those stories like a blueprint for her own life to build this framework that's impossible to sustain. When she gets upset, she tries to calm herself down with a mantra of grace and poise. But as she learns during the story, there are things in the world that deserve her anger. And there are things that are worth getting angry about, and not just trying to be calm and not lose her temper. So I think that those are some things I really hope readers take away from the story. From Izzy, I hope they learn the importance of, yes, it's great to have self-reliance and it's great to be independent, but you are stronger when you have your friends and when you turn to them when you need help. And I really hope that those two characters and those two lessons inspire the readers and help them feel better about themselves, that we don't need to do everything on our own and we don't need to be perfect.
Yeah, those are some great lessons that I definitely took away from the Gilded Girl series. Nobody is perfect, but all we can do is just try and do our best, try and be our best. And if we have a good set of people, good set of friends that help us along the way, that makes things even better. And
from Figgy Pudding, the talking cat / house dragon, I hope they learn the importance of good food and fun.
Yeah, Figgy's one of my favorite characters, as well as Tom. So
I love Figgy and Tom. It was very hard to keep them from stealing every scene that they're in.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, the scene with Tom's family used to be a lot longer before I realized, I need to pull this back. Yeah. I'm just having too much fun with these characters.
Well, it's always fun to kind of mess around with the characters before actually kind of just realizing, hey, maybe I should tone it down a bit. But also don't tone it down a bit. It's a debate in your head, and it always helps to have people around you that can kind of help you along the way.
Exactly. And early readers too can tell you when, okay, this is fun, but we need to wrap it up.
Yeah. So what's next for the Gilded Girl series?
As of right now, The Tarnished Garden will be the last in the series.
Oh.
I would love to write more, but as of right now, my publisher hasn't indicated if they want to continue it. We will see. I think they're waiting to see how The Tarnished Garden does. I'm currently shopping around another book that is very different. And then I am working on I'm starting to write a fourth book that will be similar in the vein to The Gilded Girl, but different in terms of the setting and world.
Ooh, different world. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. I'll keep you posted.
And I'll be sure to tell my friends and family about the Tarnished Garden because I do really want to see a third book, or even more.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I would love to keep reading or writing more books in that world. I think, I tried to wrap up the end nicely so the story feels finished, but there's enough threads at the end of that book that
Yeah,
could.
there's always more to the story, is what I like to think.
Exactly. Yeah. And Frances Hodgson Burnett wrote more books and I could keep doing more spinoffs.
Yeah, I love spinoffs from the main characters. Like maybe you could do a spinoff about Figgy for what all we know.
People keep asking me to write a Figgy story, so I might just have to buckle down and write a Figgy origin story here.
Yeah, that would be a great read.
Figgy is a mischievous kitten. Yes, that could be a lot of fun.
So when you wrote The Gilded Girl and The Tarnished Garden, did you find yourself also escaping into Emma and Izzy's world?
Oh, absolutely. There are parts of that world I really wish that I could enjoy for myself. I would love to be able to magic food that I don't like into something else that's delicious.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Even kindling and like the idea of swirling your arms as flames follow your arms sounds really fun. I wrote The Tarnished Garden in the summer of 2020. So right during the beginning of the pandemic, when everyone was a little lonely and everyone was a little confused and found themselves in this strange new world. And I think a lot of that worked its way into the book. That for me, writing that book was my secret garden. It was the place that I could escape to that only I knew about and that I could create, and it could be my own world. And then I had to go back into the big world, which was scary and new. And I think that Maeve's experiences in The Tarnished Garden really resonate with what we've all been through in the past couple of years, and just the way that a world that was familiar has changed for all of us.
Yeah, and also if you haven't read The Gilded Girl yet, we hopefully you guys don't know the storyline a little bit. So Maeve, she's definitely not featured and of any utmost importance in the first book, not to give anything away.
Yes, no. So no spoilers here.
Yeah.
But Maeve is the star of the second book, which you should definitely read The Gilded Girl first.
Yeah. And who is Maeve? You have to read The Gilded Girl to find out.
You'll have to find out. Yeah.
So was it easier to write the first book in the Gilded Girl series or the sequel? And how did the writing experiences compare?
So the first book, I wrote the first draft of The Gilded Girl in 44 days, which is really fast. Yeah, the story just poured out of me. But then I took a year to revise it. Oh. I had to work on the characters. Originally, there's a scene where the girls spy on a kindling. And originally that scene was in the first act, and it bounced all over the story before I finally found the right place for it. Now it happens to be the middle of the story. Mm-hmm. And so it took a while to get that one right. The Tarnished Garden, it took me about 8 months to write the first draft, but it came out so clear that it only took me about 3 or 4 weeks to revise it.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Yeah, so it was a very different writing experience, but I feel like both were challenging in their own ways. I feel like The Gilded Girl, in a way, was me figuring out how to write a middle grade novel. Versus The Tarnished Garden was more about keeping within the rules that I had already set up in The Gilded Girl. So there were moments where I was frustrated with myself, saying, "Oh, I said magic doesn't work on people. I can't do that."
Yeah,
and things like that.
That's what I love, and also kind of not really about sequels. Like I would love to see, like to write, something magical happens that, we already set rules, so in the first book, so that can't really happen. Unless it's like a super fantasy book, where anything can happen, but not all books are like that.
I think even if you have magic, you have to have rules.
Yeah.
Because if magic could do anything, then what's the point in having a story?
Yeah, exactly. That's a brilliant way to put it.
Yep.
So what advice would you give to young, aspiring authors such as myself?
I would say to read everything you can get your hands on. And then when you find something that you love, reread it. I think that rereading is the best way that you can really learn craft. For me, I love to reread things as audiobooks because it makes you it makes you see the story in a different way. And you can really hear the author's choices of words. You hear the way the sentences may flow differently than they did in your head. And the first time you read a book, you gobble it up because you want to know what happens, and you're flipping through the pages, especially if it's a mystery, you just fly through because you want to get to the end. Yeah. When you reread, you can go back and see how they put that together. You can see where they layered in the hints. You can see where they created and dropped in little hints of how the character was going to grow and change and the themes, and you'll pick up on something new every time you reread. So I think that rereading is the best way you can really start to learn how to piece a book together.
Well, anything that has to do with reading, I'm sold. So
that sounds like fun homework. Reread a book you love.
Now it's time for my next question. If you could go back in time and share with your past self some writing words of wisdom, what would you say?
I think the best thing I would say is to trust your gut. And if you love a story, follow it. Because when you are obsessed with something, when you're excited about something, your enthusiasm is going to go through. And your love for that will be on the page, and it will be infectious, and other people will love it too.
Those are some great words. I would definitely want to tell myself, who didn't write book reviews a couple of years ago, you can do this thing. I know you don't even really know how to write a book review, but you're going to do great. You're going to do pretty good things one day.
Yeah. And even if you're just, when it comes to reviews, again, if you're passionate about something, it's going to come through and it will continue to shine, and your reviews will be infectious and people will want to read the same books that you did.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the great thing about reviews, and also just kind of talking with authors, because when you're passionate about a book, when you're with the author, she or he or they're always going to be passionate about their book. So that passion is kind of going to rub off onto the listeners, and who knows, maybe The Gilded Girl might be one of your favorite books, one of the books that you'll read to your kids one day. You might find out on a book review or in this podcast.
That would be wonderful. I would love it if that happens.
And I know that it probably will happen, because of The Gilded Girl, all the books that I really read, like middle grade, they're books that I would want to read to my future self, for instance, or future kids if I do have them. I think it's all going to go full circle. That's what I like to think.
I love that. Let's from your mouth to the universe's ears right there.
Yeah. So was there anyone who inspired you to become a writer, a parent, a teacher, author, or role model?
I was blessed to have wonderful teachers growing up. From my fifth grade teacher, who inspired my love of history and made history personal with fun class simulations that we would do.
Wow.
My sixth grade teacher was the first person who ever called me an author after she read one of my short stories. And then I had wonderful teachers who encouraged my love of writing, even if none of us knew I was going to do it professionally one day. So I think that it was a combination of many people that I was blessed to encounter in my life.
Yeah, encouragement is always the best medicine. It's always great to have somebody just be on your side, like somebody who's in your corner always, just kind of cheering you on, because encouragement is always the first step, because who knows, maybe that encouragement may inspire you to do what you want to do, follow your dreams.
Yeah, I'm currently trying to track down my 8th grade English teacher, because when I was in her class, I used to get so mad at her for assigning us vocabulary exercises where we had to go through the book and pick out vocab words. And I used to tell her, Mrs. Vale, one day I'm going to write a book and put a note in it that says you are not allowed to use it for vocabulary exercises. And if you look in the acknowledgments of the Gilded Girl, it actually says that to Mrs. Vale. So I really am trying to track her down and try to find her so that I can give her a copy of the book and tell her I kept my promise. I really did write this book.
Yeah, so. I hope you can find her and track her down. I'm rooting for you about that.
Oh, thank you. I did manage to track down my 8th grade teacher who used to loan me his own books because I loved fantasy so much and the school library was really lacking in it. So he used to get books for me and bring them into school and I could borrow them. So I managed to track him down and sent him a copy, which was a pretty magical experience.
Yeah, teachers are the best. And it's Teacher Appreciation Week, so thank you, teachers.
It is. Yay for teachers. I love teachers. They are magical people. They really are.
Yeah, they really are. So now it's time for my final question, the question I ask every single one of my guests. If you could be or meet any character in any book, who would it be and why?
Now, when I heard you were going to ask me this, I was thinking and I was trying to come up with something that sounded very smart and intellectual, but I had to go with the truth, which is that when I was in 6th grade, I moved from California to New Jersey. And on the very first day we moved to New Jersey, it snowed. And I had to get used to the cold and walking out in the snow. And so when I was in 6th grade, I used to pretend to be Lyra from the Golden Compass series.
Oh, I've heard of that series.
Yeah. And I don't think I'd want to go through all the hardships that Lyra faces. I always wanted to be brave like her and strong like her. And I thought it'd be really cool to be friends with an armored polar bear.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So I love the world of those books. And I think the truth would be that in my heart, I still want to be brave and strong like Lyra.
That's a character that I would really want to be like as well. Brave and strong. Those are two qualities that I feel like some may not possess. I sometimes feel like I'm doing this author interview thing and I'm nervous, but I don't really feel brave about it. So I think brave is kind of different than like thinking and knowing that you can do something. Like when you're brave, you do it head on, but when you think that you can do something, you might not really do it.
Yeah, I think the bravery is knowing that you might fail and doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't think you're going to fail, you're not actually being brave because you're not risking anything.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So I think you are very brave doing this and putting yourself out there like this, and you do an excellent job of it.
And now it's time for a segment I like to call Each Train's Book Recommendations. I'm just going to head on to my bookshelf and pick out the one lucky book. And the book that I'm picking out is Kelsey Murphy and the Academy for the Unbreakable Arts by author Erica Lewis.
Erica is a good friend of mine, and we used to, funny enough, The Tarnished Garden, a lot of it was written sitting across the table from Erica.
Wow.
We used to meet, when I lived in California, we used to meet and write almost every day.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So Kelsey Murphy and the Academy for the Unbreakable Arts is a fantastical read. It's kind of a little bit more fantastical, like fantasy, than The Gilded Girl. It's set in a new world. And there's magic, there's adventure. It has everything the perfect fantasy book would have. So I highly recommend Kelsey Murphy and the Academy for the Unbreakable Arts. But before you read that book, be sure to check out my interview with Erica Lewis. And also, as always, read The Gilded Girl.
Thanks, E-Train. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun as well. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I am honored to be your guest and to talk about books with someone who loves them as much as you do.
Thank you. So it has been so much fun talking with you. I have a lot of fun with all the authors that I talk with, and I always mean it. It's always a great time just talking about what I love, books.
Yay, me too.
So I hope that we can kind of be a part of more book chats in the future and just talk about our favorite reads.
Absolutely. I definitely follow your podcast and I love your posts on social media, and you have excellent taste in books.
Thank you. So to all of you listening, you can find Alyssa on Twitter and on Instagram. She's active on both. And be sure to check out the Gilded Girl series. You will not regret it. The Tarnished Garden, the sequel, just came out, And while it may be the last book in the series, hopefully it isn't, and you just reading it and loving The Tarnished Garden, which I know you will probably be enough to get a third book in the Gilded Girl series. Woo!
That would be fun. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, my fingers are crossed for you. Knock on wood.
Thank you.
As always, stay safe and happy reading. I'll see you in the next one.